Up next, I have a guy who's been there and there. He founded a company 4 years ago, BASELABS, and in the last 4 years, he has become one of the major suppliers to huge automotive companies in the field of self-driving cars and technology. He has a lot of insights here to share with us today. Let's give him a warm welcome. I'm going to butcher this, but I'm going to try. Holger Löbel? Yeah! All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So it was a very nice introduction. I think I wouldn't use that strong words to describe our market position, but I think we're on a good track. So thank you very much for the warm introduction. So I miss my slides, but I think they will come next, right? So my name is Holger Löbel. I'm the CMO and the co-founder of BASELABS. So as you introduced, we founded the company in 2012. And BASELABS is a company that in non-technical words gives eyesight to vehicles. So in my presentation, I would like to give you first a bit more of a technical insight in what we actually do and how automotive technology in that field works. And in my second part, I want explicitly to address the people in the room who are in the position where we have been like 3, 4, 5 years before. So being an automotive startup, and I try to, well, summarize some of the lessons that we learned, and I think there will be plenty of time for questions as well. So I'm very open and willing to share our experiences with you. So as of today, our company has grown to 27 guys. We are located in Chemnitz, and that brings me to my introduction to my presentation, actually. So who is a fellow guy here who had a more than 1 hour car ride to come to Karlsruhe? So who is in the room here? So there's one, so some more. So, and well, how does this feel for you? So do you like commuting long distances with a vehicle? Do you like that? No, the answer is no. Is there a yes somewhere? Somebody who enjoys, well, it's really cool to be 6 hours on the Autobahn. Is there anybody here? No, there isn't, right? So this is my way to Karlsruhe. So from our headquarters in Chemnitz to Karlsruhe is like 480 kilometers. So under good conditions, you see that in that orange bubble there, it's already more than 4 hours commuting time or travel time. And if there's a bit of traffic, then it goes up to 5 hours and can be even more. Right, and this is wasted time, right? You can have a nice conversation with your passengers. That's nice when you have the opportunity. But when you drive alone, maybe you have some phone calls, and you all know you shouldn't do that. So basically, it's a waste of time, right? And what many people in the industry envision is a future like this, right? You sit back in your vehicle and relax. I share this vision. Maybe I don't share the design of the vehicle, but at least for me, it's a nice vision to be able to enter my car and to travel these like 500 kilometers without doing something myself, but doing other things, right? Like reading things and, well, making use of my time in a useful way. You may be aware of how designers envision this future, right? So here's a very nice design study. So these people do everything but driving, right? So they relax in their vehicle. I don't know, they play video games or whatever. And actually, I think the direction of travel is to their back, right? So they really need to trust the vehicle that they're sitting in and going, I don't know, maybe 130 on the Autobahn. I have no idea. So typically, how do these vehicles look today? This is, I think, a picture that is maybe a couple of years old. So the first self-driving cars by Google looked like this. So they have a huge laser scanner on the top that scans the surroundings. So very ugly technology, but it works. And here's my question for you. So in a couple of years, so would you trust your life to a vehicle that is equipped with laser scanners, with radars, with cameras? So these are the typical sensors in automated driving. Who would do that, right? Would you do that? Okay, yeah, well, so I won't, since this, of course, was a trick question. So it's not enough to have sensors in your vehicle, but you also need something to process all that data that comes from the sensors, right? Sensors alone give you data, but you need information to travel autonomously and to travel in a self-driving car. And this is the technology I want to, well, introduce you at least a bit in the few minutes in this presentation. So let's be a bit more technical. What you see here here is a top view on a vehicle. It's a truck in that case, and that vehicle is equipped with sensors. And the fields of view of these sensors are indicated in the different colors here. And the technology that is missing when you only have sensors is data fusion, and this is what we do. Right? Data fusion is the process of combining the data from different sensors and also from different sensor technologies, so maybe not only one, but maybe different technologies, and extract relevant objects out of this data that comes from the sensors. And this information, we call it the environment model. This is then the basis for the automated driving function to actually come to a decision, well, I go straight or I stop, I go right or left, right? This is the basis for that. And as we are on the innovation stage here, you may ask yourself, what is BASELABS doing in that field? Well, our core expertise is in data fusion. And a couple of years ago, we introduced a software library that makes it much more convenient for the automotive developers to implement data fusion systems. This has been the only solution in the market in that times, and it still is, and we feel very comfortable with that situation. Well, but now enough about the theory. Welcome to the test track. So as you see, it's not only about passenger vehicles when we talk about self-driving cars, but we also talk about trucks, for example. And in the following videos, I want to give you a brief impression of how such a vehicle sees its environment. And if you listen to the first presentation this morning, we learned that the human brain is able to see concepts, right? And we will see that an automotive environment perception system that sees data points and needs to do something with that, and I want to give you at least a brief insight on that topic. So this is a typical data fusion application that is used in the development process for an automated vehicle. So what do you see here? Little support for you as humans. You see a video image of what is happening in the scene, but the interesting things are happening on the right-hand side, right? You see these flickering dots here, and this is basically the data that comes from the sensors, right? So the sensors constantly deliver a lot of data points, and most of them are not relevant, right? We see that here. So we see what is relevant in this picture. It's one object in front of us, and we have a lot of detections here and there, something which is not necessarily relevant in the first step. What you are interested in is basically this marking here, right? So you can see that there's a vehicle in front of you that's marked by this blue ellipse, and this has been detected by several sensors, and then in the process of fusion, the system says, well, I'm quite sure that there's an object. The ellipse is quite small. That says the system is very sure that there's an object, and that is the information that is then passed on to the automated driving function to perform the steering, braking, whatever maneuver that is required. Let me give you another example, which is a bit more confusing. So, welcome to Shanghai. And you see here that there's a laser scanner mounted on top of the hood. And this is the data that comes from the laser scanners, right? Here it's quite almost simple since it's only 2D. The data in reality is 3D, so you have a nice cloud of reflections. And you see, would you design a driving function that is based on that information? Well, could be rather difficult, right? So maybe you wouldn't do that. So you need at least some more processing steps. You need data fusion to come to a result that may look a bit more like this. Right? It's still not absolutely accurate, but this was a 2-hour implementation. So for the vehicles that you buy, I think a bit more time is invested into the data fusion. But you see that there's more objects that are detected and marked by these ellipses. So with these processing steps, the system already gets a much more precise image of the environment that is around the vehicle. Well, this is a very brief overview of what we do. We have been quite successful with implementing this with several customers. And if you have a bit more time and to invest into your development process, the result may look like this. This should be a video as well. But this is a more complex application that fuses the information from 8 sensors that look around the vehicle. So you have a 360-degree perception of the environment. And in addition to the plots that I showed before, you also have this kind of blurry picture here. But this is a so-called occupancy grid that gives you an estimate of where free space is around your vehicle. So the vehicle should drive on the white on the white areas and should avoid the dark areas, since there is another object that would be hit in that case. Right, so this is what we do. We have very interesting customers here. We grow. So if there are guys in the room who maybe don't want to find their own company, but look for a challenging job in the automotive software development industry, please check out our website. And now I want to come to more business-related topics, and hopefully there's some interesting stuff for you in there as well. So, question: what is that? What do you think? Do you see it? This one here, the blue dot. What is that? Well, come on. What is that? What can it be? Well, it's simple. That's blue, so that's BASELABS. That's us, right? And if you start in the automotive industry, then you are a little dot, and your customers look maybe like this. So they are much, much bigger than you are, and you sit there. You say, well, I have something to offer. I want to offer this to our big customers, and they look like this, or maybe even they look like this, and you feel very, very small when you start, right? So of course, this is something. It's a bit like the story of David and Goliath, right? So there's a little guy and a big guy, and the little guy wants something from the big guy. In the historic story, he wants that Goliath surrenders. This is not how we see the world. So basically, we want Goliath to be aware of us and to become a partner, right? So we don't need these weapons. We don't want to throw stones at our customer, right? We just want to have an initial contact to establish a business relationship. And here the focus from our experience as a engineering-driven technical startup is that you should go for this, right? You should go for a partnership, and you will most likely not be in the situation that you sell a fire and forget product, so that you sell once and then you will see this customer never again in your life. But it's most likely that you will introduce a solution to your customer, and the intention is that he will use that for a longer time. So you need a partnership, right? What is the conclusion from that, right? It's very, very simple. But I think the implication is a very big one. The implication is that you, as a person and for your team, you need to set up the mind for cooperations, right? So you should stop thinking we need to just convince this customer and everything will be fine. You should shift your thinking towards how can I establish a long-lasting partnership with that customer, right? And this starts in your team, right? So being an automotive startup or a startup in general is a wide ride anyways. So you should enable a spirit in your team that is based on cooperation, since if you don't manage cooperation within your team, you will fail anyway. And of course, you will never succeed in building up long-lasting customer relationships. What can you do for that? As an entrepreneur, it's your responsibility to shape the culture in your company. Right, and what you can do is you can start on a very small basis. This is your founding team, and then maybe the growing team. And you need to make these people aware of the benefits of cooperation, of open communication, that they live this spirit inside your company. And if they do that, then your customers, the persons that you meet, they will perceive you as somebody who is a guy who wants to or who you want to be in a partnership with, right? So this is we put this into our working principles, right? So cooperation is one of our working principles, and that has proven to be very, very helpful for us in the long run. Well, back to David and Goliath, right? So if you're David and you're maybe like this little guy, you have this big guy in front of you, and you want to make him aware of you, right? And you think, well, I have the coolest solution on earth, and why don't they buy it? Well, most likely they don't buy it themselves, since they are not aware of that, and you need to make them aware of this. And how do you do this in the automotive industry? Let's have a look at the typical customer. So Denso Corporation is one of our global customers. And if you check Wikipedia, you see that they have like 150,000 employees, right? So how do you approach this organization, right? So it's a massive machine, a lot of people, and you don't know whom to contact. But most likely, in your industry, in what you specifically provide, there will be events where you can meet these people. And the lesson is the giant basically has a face, right? The face may be Mr. Leinmüller, right? This is from whatever automotive event webpage. And there at these events, the giant gets a face, and the giant becomes a person that you can approach. The lesson here is that first, it's very expensive to go to these events. Side remark, with a startup story, when you're very young, you may get significant discounts. Sometimes that works. But it costs a lot of money. And typically, you don't meet 10 Tim Leinmüllers at this event, but you will only meet one. So you have here, you have the one shot. You need to find this guy at the event, and you need to talk to this guy and convince him of you and your skills and your company. And this is something that is maybe not granted to everybody, but what is granted to everybody, that you can train these skills, right? So our lesson is that we started very early with specific training for sales in general and communication on a broader aspects. And this, when we reflect our first years, that was very valuable for us, since we initiated in the first 3 years, I think 95% of our sales contacts we initiated exactly in that way. We went to events, we researched the persons that are relevant for us, and we had a first conversation and a first impression, right? And if you're well prepared for that, if you have a nice pitch, right? It's basically about pitching, then you can go the next step. And maybe Tim Leinmüller is not the right person for you, but maybe he knows the right person. And if he got a good impression from you, then he will help you to open other gates in the organization. So invest into yourself, invest into your communication skills. That is the lesson. Another topic is that big customers have big bureaucracies. So if you come to the point where you send your first quotation to a customer, a potential customer, then most likely you will get a call from the legal department or purchasing department, right? And they will say, well, that's all very nice, and maybe they order right away, but they say, well, our terms and conditions apply. And then if you are too strongly concentrated on being David, then maybe you sign right away, and then you are in. However, our experience shows that typically there's room for negotiation. So you don't need to accept all the terms that come there. That's payment terms, maybe some customers say 60, you say 30. Or it's in the software business especially, it's the question, do you get source code or don't you? What usage rights do you get, right? And our experience is it's always worth to reject the stuff, but in a friendly way, of course, and ask for a compromise that you can have with your customer. So don't be afraid of challenging Goliath. So be open and expect that there is somebody who wants to talk to you, since this is the experience that we made. And we had, I think, very few cases where we really needed to surrender, where we had to accept the terms of the customers. But in most cases, we were successful in at least bringing through the points that were very important for us. Right, so after these things, now talk about really serious. So let's talk about growth, as this line indicates with the nice cats here. Most likely, to grow in your business, you will need money. And there are different sources for money. The good thing is that from our experience, there's a lot of money available in the market. You just need to get it. And you should spend a bit time on from whom you take it. Since there's a huge difference in our history of how somebody who gives you capital sees your business and understands your business model. So we started with a VC fund, classic venture capital, and that was good for the start, but very soon it turns out that, well, the expectations were, of course, different. Of course, we expected in the beginning that we will grow faster. Of course, the VC expected the same, since we wrote the business plan accordingly. And there was no big dissatisfaction, but it was, you could feel in the conversation that the expectations were going like, well, we saw, okay, we have a business model that develops more slowly and more constant. And the VC, of course, had the hockey stick in mind, right? And was looking at the big return into a short amount of time. So VCs, certainly, they are the guys with the big money. And it's nice to get this. VCs also have their advantages, right? They know how to grow a company. They don't do this for the first time. They can give you advice. They can give you relevant contacts like coaches or other people who may be helpful in your development. But you will be very lucky if you find a VC who is really in your industry and who can open up doors for you, has an infrastructure that supports directly your business, right? And this is something that most likely you will not find with most of the VCs out there, right? So you need to really think, is that the right way? Another way could be that you address strategic investors or maybe corporate VCs, maybe a different term for that. People who, are more partners or can be more partners to your business and to your development than a regular VC or a classic VC. These are guys who basically know your business, at least they are maybe close to this. They may be, for example, another automotive software company. And they may support you not only with capital, but also with know-how about customers, with customer access, maybe with a global sales organization. And these are things that are very valuable for the development, especially of these complicated B2B topics that maybe most of you are in. Right? So we have, as a second financing round, we have a strategic investor. This is Vector, who is a sponsor of this event. And for us, the partnership is very valuable, right? Since it fulfilled all the things that I mentioned. So Vector is a company in the automotive software domain. They're established at the market. They give conferences where basically all relevant customers appear, and you have the chance to give a presentation like this, maybe with less cat pictures, but more facts. And they are the guys who understand that your business model is maybe a bit more difficult and grows maybe a bit more slower than a Facebook business model, for example, right? And so I'm very glad that I learned at this event that just last month, Vector initiated their own corporate venture capital group. So I think if anybody here is in the room who has a technology topic that is maybe close to the automotive industry, I think it's definitely worth a talk to these guys in the red shirts. A lot of them are in the room. All right, so thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Holger, thank you so much for your really practical, really reasonable advice for the startups. I know everyone here appreciates it. If you're a startup and you want to ask Holger a question, please find him on the sidelines of the conference. Appeal to his wisdom and his experience and his failures even. Having done things right and wrong, he knows what to tell you. So find Holger, ask him your questions. Let's give him a warm thank you for being here with us today on the stage.
Thank you.